Akira was playing enthusiastically when, just as he was about to beat his opponent, the connection suddenly cut off. He grumbled, put on his coat, and headed for school. While waiting for his ride, he started playing another game. Two of his classmates noticed how he never missed a chance to play even on his way to school or during class 7, though he always scored first in exams, which made him seem a bit eccentric. Suddenly, a car stopped in front of him, and a huge man stepped out. The bystanders scattered as soon as they saw him, leaving Akira alone with the giant who lunged at him. Acting quickly, Akira hopped on a nearby bike and fled, though the giant pursued him. Deciding to treat the encounter like it was part of a game, Akira led the giant to a building perfect for setting a trap. There, he tied a rope to a large tank and tossed the other end toward his opponent's foot. When the giant moved, the tank fell on him, but instead of being affected, he simply flew straight toward Akira. At the right moment, Akira grabbed an iron rod and drove it into the giant's stomach, spraying blood from his back. Just then, a woman named Mion appeared and congratulated him on surviving, though she regretfully noted that his battle was pointless. In a flash, she knocked his arm off. He fell, blood splattering everywhere, wishing he had some game he could actually win. Moments later, he woke up in the middle of a noisy celebration, surrounded by a crowd. Looking at his arm, he saw it was unharmed, but his hand was cuffed. Mion reappeared, introducing herself as the witch, and welcomed everyone, announcing that they had all been chosen as test subjects for her project. She explained that their names had been erased from the national records, meaning that in society they were considered dead and without rights except for what she allowed. When one of the onlookers interrupted, she transformed her hand into a cannon and fired at him, making him collapse dead in front of everyone. The rest quickly understood her seriousness. She told them each possessed a special ability and that was why they were there. Though the shackles they wore limited their movements and prevented them from using their powers, these restraints would automatically unlock when their color changed from red to green after 5 seconds, allowing them to use their abilities freely with no penalty for causing harm or even killing. Mion then approached Akira with a wry smile, remarking that he seemed to be enjoying these games. She turned to the class representative, Tataria, and asked if she would raise her hand before questions like she did at school. Tataria simply shook her head. Then she moved to Kurosaki, calling him a delinquent and remarking that this atmosphere reminded him of a school lecture he likely despised. Komagiri then asked why they were here, but she dodged the answer. When asked why she had killed a man despite being able to stop him without fatality, she replied that it was because he was bad. Another girl intervened, claiming that Mion had pre-planned this magic show, to which Mion retorted that she was just being clever. Yuri then asked why she specifically chose them given that she knew everything about them. Mion responded that she picked them at random, as if they'd won the lottery. Yang interrupted, announcing that the Q&A segment was over and that the first contest would be a one-on-one battle, 1 versus 1. Everyone would be taken to private rooms to explore and train their abilities. Akira entered his room, his shackles unlocked, and he read the notes laid out on the table. They detailed a battle that would end with either unconsciousness, death, or surrender. Alongside them was another sealed paper with information on his ability. As he read it, he was stunned and wondered how best to use it. In the control room, Mion watched everyone, remarking that Akira was her favorite. Suddenly, the area trembled, and Akira realized someone was testing his strength. He wondered, what if someone with a dangerous ability tried to kill me? How would I react? Remembering Mion's comment about no punishment for killing, he realized she had lured them into killing one another. The first battle began. Akira faced his opponent Kurosaki, who grabbed a stick and declared he hated school, advising Akira to surrender since he would surely lose. Instead, Akira pressed on. When the fight started and the shackles unlocked, Kurosaki transformed his stick into a sword and chased Akira, who dodged his blows using chairs as cover. Akira soon left the classroom, but Kurosaki followed him into a dark area. There, Akira tried some tricks, but his opponent was unaffected and told him his time was up, that he should surrender. In a sudden twist, Akira emerged from the darkness, admitting he had hesitated to use his ability because of its danger. Meanwhile, in the control room, Mion smiled and said, "Now the show begins." At the moment Kurosaki lunged to finish him off, Akira raised his hand, turning it into a cannon, and fired. The explosion pushed Kurosaki away, and his weapon returned to its normal state. Akira warned him to surrender or face death, and Kurosaki complied, declaring Akira the winner. In the control room, Mion smiled at Yang, remarking that the fight had been worth watching. Yang then asked why Akira hadn't used his cannon from the start. Mion explained that his power wasn't really about the cannon, it was far more cunning. His true ability was making his opponent believe that his ability was exactly what they expected. Akira then returned to his room with the guards, having decided to participate in the program, but he was already planning to make Mion regret giving him this ability. Yuri sat in her room, replaying a conversation with her two friends. One had asked if they could go out together, and Yuri replied that she didn't have the money she worked hard but preferred to save. As her friends talked, they noticed a little puppy and went over to pet it. When Yuri reached out to touch it, the dog suddenly barked, startling her. Her friends tried to reassure her that it was just a coincidence, but she insisted that she hated coincidences. She then recalled an earlier incident when she saw a young man crying on the street with no one paying attention. She had approached him and offered a tissue, only to later find out he was a pervert who began stalking her everywhere. She wished then that she hadn't trusted him. When she returned home, she was surprised to see her mother introducing her to a man she had met by chance in a bar. Yuri felt repulsed and commented that all the men her mother brought from those places were the same. The man joked with her mother about how she managed to have a mature daughter who still looked young, and her mother explained that her lover had a small daughter they both needed to care for. Yuri paid no mind to the exchange and left without comment. On her way out, Yuri encountered the same young man she had helped earlier, now standing on a rooftop, seemingly about to commit suicide. She ran toward him to try and save him, but he asked her how she knew where he was, claiming he felt as if they were connected by an invisible thread. Yuri shouted at him to stop talking, insisting she didn't care if he died as long as he stopped bothering her. He insisted that if she didn't return his feelings, he would die right there. Reluctantly, Yuri moved closer and reached out her hand. He smiled, saying he always knew she wouldn't leave him, just as when they first met. But as soon as she grabbed him, both lost their balance and tumbled off the building. Suddenly, Yuri awoke in her bed, nearly convinced she'd be back in her old room, but she figured that the suicide and the woman with the can in hand were just a dream. When she tried to leave her room, she discovered that the door had no handle, as if she were truly imprisoned. She began screaming and kicking in anger, insisting that she couldn't be locked up by coincidence alone. In the control room, Mion watched her with interest, wondering about the nature of her ability, while Yang remarked that Yuri was a very strong candidate. After reading the note about her ability, Yuri wondered how to use it. Placing her hand on the wall, she was shocked when parts of it shattered. Despite that, she realized it seemed useless while back in the control room. Yang sarcastically noted that maybe Yuri had hoped for an ability that would let her escape. Yuri sat crying, remembering the day she had planned to leave home after her savings nearly reached 1 million yen, only to return and find Riria, her mother's lover's daughter, alone at home. When Yuri asked when her father had left with her mother, Riria replied it had been that morning, and that he hadn't even had breakfast. So Yuri prepared a meal for both of them, and they ate together. Riria complimented her cooking, and Yuri explained that she'd been cooking since she was little. She cared for Riria until she fell asleep, convinced that her mother would eventually break up with her lover, even though she couldn't forget her mother's earlier words that her life had collapsed because she had given birth to Yuri by coincidence. Her reverie was abruptly interrupted by an announcement that the match was about to begin. The guard led her to the combat arena, where she faced a formidable opponent. He told her that when he saw her, he felt hopeful because he could distinguish people by scent and that her scent indicated she was still a virgin. He approached her heavily, and she ordered him to back off, threatening to beat him. He ignored her, instead saying he loved the smell of young girls. When the shackles unlocked, Yuri dashed forward, dodging his touch. Impressed by her quick reaction despite her size, he remarked that she was his favorite type. That enraged Yuri, and she vowed to crush him without hesitation, especially after learning that he hurt young girls. Suddenly, the man stripped off his clothes and lunged at her, grabbing her in his arms and demanding she tell him about herself as he sensed her fear. He then recalled an earlier incident when a girl had threatened him after spending a day with him, demanding money in exchange for not exposing him an encounter that ended with him killing her, after which he became addicted to chasing and forcing teenage girls into submission. The mere mention of the word coincidence infuriated Yuri. Gathering her strength, she tore his hand away and pushed him aside, declaring that he would soon learn what it felt like to hurt someone weaker than him. The man was shocked as he clutched his injured hand, unable to believe she was challenging him. She didn't give him a chance to respond. She leapt forward and delivered a powerful punch that sent him reeling. Everyone then realized that she possessed the ability to multiply her physical strength by 5 times. Her opponent collapsed motionless, and her victory was declared. Yang watched in amazement at the precision with which Yuri used her ability, while Yuri whispered to herself that she would go home no matter what it took. Elsewhere, Akira sat in his room enjoying some sweets while watching the surveillance feed, vowing to crush everyone with his power. He began thinking about how to exploit his ability without drawing the attention of the program organizers, guessing that perhaps they could read his thoughts but preferred to leave him alone while they evaluated him. He grinned slyly, saying he would show them just how strong he really was. His power allowed him to track and realize others' thoughts without tiring, but he wondered where that energy came from. Suddenly, Mion appeared beside him, explaining that his energy was drawn from lifespan extent, meaning that each time he used his power, someone somewhere in the world would die. Before he could fully absorb her words, she smiled and said she was just joking. That gave him no comfort. Soon a guard came, leading him to the next arena, where he was taken to a room containing 4 other people. He realized this would be a group battle 5 versus 5, and that they had only 2 hours to prepare for what was coming next. After the explanation of the program ended, Yuri commented that it was very short, while Akira wondered inside how he could sit with such odd characters for 2 hours. He guessed the goal might be to force them to kill each other, making gang battles inevitable or to have them coordinate with their team, as each discovered the other's ability. His real ability is that whatever his opponent thinks is his power actually becomes his, and Karasasaki believed his ability was the canon. He wondered whether he should tell them the truth about his power, but one of them spoke up, suggesting they get to know one another and make plans as comrades. He introduced himself as Sawatari and explained that his ability was to turn buttons into rope. Yuri interrupted, criticizing it as just a fun trick she considered a burden. When she was asked about her ability, she answered that it multiplies her physical strength by 5, which left everyone astonished. Karasasaki announced that his ability was to turn a stick into a sword, while Komagiri stated he could become invulnerable for 2 seconds, a comment that surprised Sawatari, since he was the least powerful among them. Komagiri added that he had no intention of using anything implanted in his body by the program staff without permission, emphasizing that he was a professional wrestler. As for Akira, he hid his true ability by claiming that his power was to turn his hand into a cannon, prompting Sawatari to grumble about having a useless ability. When Yuri asked how he would fare in a one-on-one fight, he answered that she could guess by looking at his power, while Akira himself was rethinking whether to reveal his true ability to his team. He realized that if they discovered it, they might cancel it easily, so he decided to tell only the right person. Once everyone had introduced themselves, Sawatari suggested each demonstrate his ability practically. He asked Akira about Karasasaki's injury, which surprised everyone. Akira explained that Karasasaki had been his opponent in a one-on-one battle. Immediately, Sawatari got excited, noting that meant Karasasaki had lost. In response, Karasasaki threatened to kill him if he didn't shut up, pointing out he had received only minimal medical care bandages and painkillers. At that moment, Akira began to wonder who was really running the place, guessing that his ability might only work against overt enemies in confrontations, making gang fights a good chance to discover its true effect. He appreciated Sawatari's reckless nature revealing his ability right away, which diverted attention from him. With the match time approaching, Akira asked Yuri how high she could jump with her power. She leaped straight toward the ceiling, reassuring him that she had reached it effortlessly. The guards then took them to the match location. There, Akira asked her if her muscle strength had multiplied without an increase in weight, accusing her of deceiving him by her clothes. She retorted, but he replied that he'd noticed it from her jump. At that moment, Sawatari ordered them to kill their opponents if the opportunity arose, which shocked everyone. They were reminded that Mayon had explained from the beginning that they wouldn't be punished for doing so, and were urged to get ready if they didn't want to die. Entering the battle hall, they found 4 people while the 5th was hidden, prompting questions about why. The system announced that each member would be summoned for a one-on-one fight, and the results of the bouts would decide the winning team. The first round was between Sawatari and Rin. Sawatari remarked that the gang fights had turned into one-on-one duels resembling judo, while Akira realized that such fights didn't require everyone to reveal their abilities, though he was sure there was a hidden meaning behind the program. As soon as the restraints were dropped, Rin asked Sawatari to withdraw as a courtesy. He expressed admiration for her proposal, but hinted that he trusted she was hiding something beneath her attire, that she might possess a unique power. She removed her attire, startling everyone, but then told him she wouldn't let him withdraw without a price. Instead, she would gift him something. He explained that he did not wish to hurt women, but couldn't back down, and proposed that they settle it with a coin toss where the loser would withdraw. At that moment, Akira was watching Sawatari, convinced that his ability wasn't fit for combat, while Komagiri thought Rin's ability posed a threat to Sawatari, and predicted his own withdrawal. Yuri guessed he was a good man who didn't exploit his power. Then Rin bet on heads while Sawatari chose tails. As the coin was tossed, Rin surprised him with her sharp weapons. Everyone was shocked by her treachery, but she apologized, explaining she had planned to kill him from the start and used his momentary distraction to strike. Karasasaki asked Akira about Rin's ability, but he said he had observed her closely without being able to determine as she barely moved, yet her weapons appeared suddenly. Yuri tried getting closer to Sawatari, but her teammates warned her. Meanwhile, Karasasaki grumbled that he couldn't keep up with Rin to force her to reveal her ability before he was killed. Soon, paramedics arrived and took Sawatari away. Yuri and Komagiri stopped Karasasaki from mentioning the person who had just died. Akira was irritated by how visibly affected they were by Sawatari's death, while Rin remarked that a brawl had erupted among the other team and advised her comrades to stick together. She then asked her team if they were upset about her killing Sawatari, explaining that he had told her his ability was lethal and she had had no choice but to defend herself. Akira tried calming the situation, saying that discussing it was important but that it wasn't the right time. Afterward, the next round was announced between Komagiri and Tartaria. Komagiri advanced, insisting that survival was now the priority. Karasasaki noted that Komagiri's opponent seemed calm despite Komagiri's massive build and wondered wondered whether that was due to the strength of his ability. When the fight began, Komagiri tried to avoid repeating Sawatari's mistake by dodging a reckless charge. Then he suddenly ran to push his opponent out of the ring without injuring him. Tartaria raised her hand in surrender, declaring her loss. This surprised Yuri, who guessed that her power wasn't well suited for combat, while Akira thought it was still too early to judge the strengths of the other team members. After returning to her group, Tartaria explained that she had copied her opponent's ability but couldn't figure it out, leaving her completely helpless. She only got 0.2 seconds, making a win impossible. Meanwhile, Rin nearly choked her, accusing her of making her opponent brace rather than lure him into revealing his power. Zokumyoin managed to calm Rin down and assured her that her power would give them the advantage in the next round. Rin then let go of Tartaria's neck and thanked Zokumyoin, who replied that they were comrades. Despite this, she secretly feared Rin, realizing that copying an opponent's skills at 10 times her own strength wouldn't give her any chance against Komagiri. Next, the following round was announced between Karasasaki and Zokumyoin. As soon as the restraints were removed, Zokumyoin pulled out her slingshot and fired a bullet at Karasasaki, believing that the first strike would secure her victory. He easily blocked it with his stick. Then, he realized she was a strong fighter himself, and he declared that he was ready to fight roughly like her. Turning his stick into a sword, he charged her, and she retreated in shock. Karasasaki offered her the chance to withdraw, but she thought about what Rin might do to her and refused to lose. Akira then ordered Karasasaki to finish it immediately. In response, Zokumyoin hurled a series of balls at him, declaring that it was time to get serious. Karasasaki began to dodge her attacks, betting that her ammunition would run out. However, she cornered him with a barrage of balls, closing off his escape route. He asked if she was trying to trap him, reminding her of his power to cut through things. She then threw her last ball at him, which he sliced in half with his sword, confirming that she wouldn't succeed. But suddenly, she leaped with her slingshot, declaring she still had one, and moved in to strike him directly to be caught off guard when he broke her slingshot before she could fire. She guessed he had been hiding a knife, but he explained that it made sense to split one of his staffs in half to save a part for transformation into a sword at the right moment. Realizing his tactic, she found herself forced to surrender when he ordered her to do so. She admitted that his arrogance and overconfidence had given her a chance to win, and then shocked him by throwing a ball under his feet that grew in size, lifting him to the ceiling, and knocking him unconscious, declaring her victory. Later, it was Akira's turn to face Kitajima. Yuri expressed concern about his potential loss, but he insisted he had no chance of losing and warned of the consequences for the losing team. Komagiri advised him not to take it lightly, prompting Akira to ponder the real purpose of their involvement, wondering if it was really about killing each other. He concluded that they weren't killed but treated so they could keep fighting. When the bout began, Akira turned to Karasaki, reproaching him for underestimating his opponents and putting the team at risk. He then pointed his hand at him to activate the cannon, leaving everyone astonished. However, he quickly apologized after firing the cannon against the wall next to him, saying it had been just a joke. Kitajima was shocked by his behavior, recalling his constant fear of becoming a hero, but when he faced Akira's incoming cannon, he mustered the strength to dodge it. Akira noticed that everyone thought his only power was the cannon. Then suddenly his hand transformed into a cannon as he understood the conditions for its activation. Determined not to kill Kitajima, he fired several rounds. However, none of the shots hit, and they eventually faded away. Realizing that Kitajima possessed an ability to cancel others' powers, Akira immobilized him by raising his hands off the ground to prevent him from using his ability. This forced Kitajima to surrender, and Akira was declared the winner. Moments earlier, Akira had to use his area ability, claiming he would fire at Karasasaki. This led to a scuffle between them, during which Akira realized that his power required a mutual clash with his opponent to be activated. After stepping out of the ring, Karasasaki grabbed Akira's collar, questioning why he had fired at him. Akira replied that it was for their benefit. Yuri observed that the cannon was strong, while Komagiri commented that the opponent's strength seemed weak compared to his own. Akira ultimately realized that his power depended on the user's identity and how he utilized it. Next up was the face-off between Yuri and the disguised Hoshino, young man who had been following her. Hoshino entered, declaring that not even death would separate him from Yuri. She asked how he survived a suicide attempt and vowed to defeat him, threatening him as she stepped into the ring. Komagiri felt uneasy, thinking that her power might not be threatening, but Akira reassured him. Once the restraints were lifted, Hoshino opened his arms toward Yuri, ready to absorb her anger with his ability to harden his body. However, she surprised him with a powerful punch that sent him crashing to the floor and cracked the ground, declaring her victory amid everyone's astonishment. Akira realized that her ability wasn't just about strengthening her grip, it multiplied all her physical capabilities during combat. Later, Mayan appeared congratulating the team and announcing that they would move on to the third program soon, while asking about their expectations for punishing the losing team. Then, everyone was blindfolded and taken to the punishment room, where Akira wondered if the losing team would be tortured or executed. Upon arrival, they were surprised to find that the punishment involved forcing the losers to serve the winners while wearing humiliating clothes, with Hoshino Hoshino and Kitajima sitting in a corner drinking water. Mayan whispered to Akira that this wasn't the punishment he had expected, while the team sat down to eat. Rin took charge of serving them, trying to learn more about Akira, but he ignored her and asked Yuri to serve him a plate, which she did. Complaining about the pain in her wrist from hitting Hoshino, Akira noticed her injury and tied her hand with a handkerchief, asking her not to move, which she admitted she found endearing. Meanwhile, Karasasaki boasted to Tartaria and asked her for tea, but Akira criticized him by reminding him of his failures. Yuri rushed over to support him as Tartaria thanked him for defending her, though she was surprised when he guessed that she was still in middle school, despite being a high school student due to her short stature. Mayan then announced the start of the third program, confirming that the real punishment was yet to come, and that wearing bunny costumes had been merely for amusement. After that, the guards told everyone to follow the corridors and instructions. They realized they'd be separated and might even become enemies in the next confrontation. Kirisaki promised Akira revenge, while Komagiri ordered them not to die until then. Before parting ways, Akira told Yuri that the handkerchief had great importance to him since childhood, promising to return it later. Then they wished each other safety and went their separate ways. Akira entered a room and found a phone on the table. As soon as he picked it up, he heard over the speaker that the cuffs were about to be released and that he should take his phone. He had 100 points and needed to gather 1-0. He wondered if that was all there was to the program when suddenly, a door opened in front of him. He walked through it and found himself outside at 13:18. He was informed that anyone who fell to the ground in Complex A within half an hour would earn 10 points. He started running while grumbling about the low reward. He guessed that some other players had already started the third program, but he was in a bad spot because he still didn't know how the program worked. Moments later, Katsuya blocked his way, raising his hand to show he wasn't there to fight but to recruit him. Yet before he could explain further, Yuri appeared behind him, chased by several men. Panting, she explained that a group of suspicious people was after her. As the pursuers closed in, they wondered about her speed. When they saw Katsuya, one of them remarked that their boss would be happy if they could kidnap him. They then introduced themselves as the Red Dragon team. One of them got excited, mistakenly thinking Akira was a girl so that they could capture two girls, but his partner corrected him, saying he was actually a man, and another warned Katsuya not to fight, offering to exchange Yuri for leaving him alone. At that moment, Katsuya transformed his stick into a bow and aimed defiantly at them, insisting he would not hand over the children just to save himself. He then ordered Akira and Yuri to run. Suddenly, Matsushita turned his hand into a cannon, prompting Yuri to tell Akira that she had a similar cannon. Without hesitation, Akira fired his cannon at the Red Dragon team, which led one of them to command his men to capture him. He and his companions tried to advance, but Katsuya intercepted them with a barrage of arrows. The three managed to escape, but then Matsushita ordered them to fire on the fleeing trio. Akira turned and fired his cannon as well, and the two cannon blasts collided, creating a huge explosion. By the time the Red Dragon team came to, Akira and his companions were already gone. Later, Katsuya thanked Akira and Yuri for saving him, but Akira objected, claiming he was the one who saved them in the first place. He then asked about the philosophy of the Green team, noting that Katsuya had not hesitated to show off his abilities earlier. Yuri then inquired about the difference between the Green team and the Red team. He explained that they were groups. Most people in the third program played in teams. He was part of the Green team, while the Red team was dangerous, led by two people with insane abilities. He then took them to meet his boss in a place that resembled a village. Along the way, they met Ahsoka and her infant, noticing that the baby wasn't wearing cuffs. Katsuya explained that the baby, Taro, was born there when his mother was 3 months pregnant upon arrival. He cared for the child while the mother was absent. When Yuri held the baby and commented on its weight, the trio continued toward their leader. Upon arrival, Katsuya led them into a meeting room and left them momentarily until his boss was summoned. Akira and Yuri took the opportunity to share their happiness at finally meeting. Akira told Yuri that if she hadn't come on her own, he would have had to search for her. Akira also noticed that the villagers looked strong, clearly having built a large base where they maintained their team and even accepted new members. Shortly afterward, the boss, Shirasagi, appeared and welcomed them, praising Katsuya for saving them. Akira insisted, however, that he was the one who saved them first. The boss reassured them that they would be safe with his group, and then offered Akira a chance to join the Green team, citing their lack of strong abilities. Katsuya then asked about Yuri's ability, explaining that she would join too if she didn't mind. Yuri replied that her ability was to multiply her physical strength 5-fold. Both Katsuya and his boss were shocked, as such an ability was extremely rare. The boss complimented Katsuya, figuring that having both the cannon and the multiplier might completely change their situation. After that, he explained that the third program was about collecting points by completing tasks set by the organization, and that these points could be used to buy resources like food, drink, and medicine. He added that the main goal was to reach 0 points. When he first arrived at the village, the groups were small and agile with no fighting over points. But things changed when one team started expanding rapidly, including dozens of members. Initially, The boss didn't worry, but he soon learned that this team was kidnapping people for reasons unrelated to the tasks. Yuri guessed he was referring to the red team, while Akira pointed out that the red team wasn't even aiming to qualify for the next program. Then the boss explained that no one really wanted to stay in that place, yet no one was sure that the next program would be any better. Thus, the red team aimed to harness strong abilities and collect enough points to purchase resources, so they could turn this world into their own kingdom by taking advantage of those with weak abilities. Meanwhile, the red team members were being punished for failing to capture Akira. Their leader, Ogami, was furious and ordered his partner, Rin, to serve wine to his men. But as soon as one approached, Ogami struck violently, reminding them that he had threatened to kill them if they failed. Then the second leader, Kuroiwa, stepped in, stating he didn't mind disciplining the men as long as it didn't lead to chaos. He warned that anyone who even stained his clothes or shoes with a drop of blood would be killed immediately. Afterward, he ordered the injured to be taken away, curiously wondering how Akira had managed to escape since his abilities didn't seem limited to just the cannon. Shirasagi then explained to Akira that he had established the green team to protect those who were weak from the tyranny of the red team, but that there was also a third team with its own methods, the blue team. While the red team exploited the weak and the green team opposed them, the blue team maintained neutrality. Shirasagi stressed that he needed support from Akira and Yuri to fight the red team, and Yuri immediately agreed to join him. But the real surprise came when Akira made an unexpected move. He tried to use his ability to take Shirasagi hostage, wanting to decide for himself which team he would join. Even more surprisingly, his cannon disappeared, leaving him wondering whether it was due to the boss's ability to cancel others' powers, or because he was never really convinced he actually had a cannon ability to begin with. Yuri tried to persuade him to lower his hand, but suddenly he regained his cannon, and then the boss ordered him to fire. When Akira fired at the boss, he was surprised by the boss's ability to deflect the cannon fire. Yuri scolded him, and he apologized. Meanwhile, Shirasagi observed that Akira seemed to be testing their chances of beating the red team under his leadership. Though internally Akira thought of him as a cunning leader, he couldn't believe he ever really had a cannon. Soon Momoko knocked on the door, announcing that a large group of people had arrived, which made Shirasagi comment that this might snap them out of their lethargy. However, Katsuya pointed out that there weren't enough rooms, so Akira suggested that Yuri share a room with him. They headed to the room, leaving Yuri shocked that she would be staying there with him. Akira apologized, saying he had no choice because he needed to tell her something important. He handed her a paper and said that what was written was extremely important. After reading it, she discovered his true ability was telepathy, which amazed her. He explained that they could win if they merged their minds. For a moment, she felt foolish, thinking he would confess his feelings for her, but instead he asked her to close her eyes and imagine that his feelings would reach her. Yuri complied, and they successfully communicated telepathically. He then ordered her to speak only in that manner later, fearing the room might be under surveillance. When she asked who could be watching, he said it was the boss who didn't trust them. His security measures meant he doubted everything, especially with them being so powerful. So Akira suggested they work together first, promising to explain everything later. In their conversation, they discussed Raria. Yuri guessed that Raria must have been in pain over the news of her death, and asked what his parents' reaction had been. He said he only had his father, and he wouldn't mind his disappearance. His goal wasn't to return home, but to finish the game and confront Mion for giving him this ability. Akira then asked Yuri to shake his hand as a sign of trust, promising to return her home, and got her to promise to keep his ability a secret. After shaking hands, he explained that his ability wasn't the cannon or telepathy, it was the power to make others believe he had whatever ability they thought he did. Yuri was amazed, and at that moment, they received a call from Mion, announcing a massive killing mission and the start of the ghoul hunt game at 9 AM, instructing them to be ready and go to bed early. The news reached the leader of the Red Dragon, who decided to get rid of the slaves during this mission, wondering what Mion was planning. In the morning, Shirasagi gathered everyone, explaining that this was one of Mion's missions. He called on everyone with special abilities to join, aiming to collect points, and stressed the need to follow the leader's plans without taking unnecessary risks. He divided the groups and placed Akira and Yuri together in a separate team of just two, believing that their abilities worked better that way, while Kurosaki appeared with two people who didn't want to participate. As the mission began, Yuri asked Akira about his ability, and he confirmed that he could use any power others believed he had, reminding her of their agreement. Later, Akira thought that after learning he could search for information with his phone, he hadn't found anything about abilities, meaning that the ability system Katsuya mentioned must be invented by the players themselves. However, he realized that trouble would arise if someone discovered his true ability, so he decided to act before anyone could target him. He also understood that revealing his true self to Yuri would place his life in her hands. After their group reached the target area, Mayun met them and pushed the ghouls toward their group, announcing that the mission would end with the death of either the ghouls or the players, and that each ghoul killed would grant 30 points. The countdown began and the fight started. Shirasagi assigned roles. He ordered the defense team to counterattack, while the restrainers fixed the ghouls, allowing the excluded team to finish them off by incapacitating them and severing their heads. Akira used his cannon to attack one of the ghouls, reassuring Yori that they could crush them thanks to its doubled power. One ghoul tried to hit Oino, the leader of Team D, but he blocked the attack with his ability to make his body hard, while Jushima, the leader of Team C, moved quickly using his teleportation power. Mayun noticed that Akira was deeply involved in the fight and wondered how long he would keep going. Suddenly, the leader of the red team appeared with Kuroiwa, delivering a huge punch to one of the ghouls, a move that surprised Shirasagi, who hadn't expected him to show up with his companions. Akira then asked Yori to limit her power, but he was surprised when she leaped directly at the ghoul. At the same time, Mayun spoke with Ogami and Kuroiwa about why they weren't participating despite the preparations, although Kuroiwa told her not to interfere. Soon, the participants started fleeing. Kuroiwa guessed that Shirasagi was hiding something he didn't want anyone to see. For that reason, he had brought many slaves so that the ghouls would attack them, forcing Shirasagi to defend them instead of retreating. Then, Shirasagi ordered the rescue of the slaves, while Akira stepped in to save Tataria. Mayun suddenly detonated one of the sites, releasing a massive monster, and announced to the Red Dragon leader that she had hoped they would join in, but things had just gotten more exciting. The ghoul, Mian, appeared, marking the start of the main event. Oino charged at the ghoul but suffered a powerful blow that slammed him into a wall, while Akira fired his cannon again, only to have the ghoul easily deflect the attack. At that moment, Shirasagi stood before the ghoul and ordered Akira to rescue Eiji when the opportunity arose, stressing that he would distract the ghoul while Katsuya dealt with the rest. Kuroiwa watched Shirasagi closely, eager to uncover his true abilities. As Akira charged as instructed, Shirasagi blocked a ghoul's attempted punch by raising his hand as a barrier. He thought to himself that he had always believed in sticking to the rules, but today was different. Using his ability now meant exposing his true self and revealing his power to dismantle the red team, yet he could no longer sacrifice what mattered most to him. Then suddenly, he thrust his hand toward the ghoul, and a huge burst of energy erupted, knocking the ghoul to the ground. However, his hand began to bleed, as he explained that when he ended a negotiation, he could reflect the damage back onto the attacker to finish the battle. At that moment, everyone realized he possessed the ability to forcefully negotiate with his opponent, but they were all surprised when the ghoul regained its strength and rose again, at which point Mayun smiled and said the battle wasn't over yet. Yori moved to help the leader, but he ordered her to leave. Katsuya and Akira also tried to stop her, yet she rushed forward without hesitation to assist him. Performing her usual jump, she announced to Shirasagi that she was there to rescue them, and that she must support him, but the ghoul knocked her down instantly. At that moment, Akira fired his cannon at the ghoul, which amazed Yori to see him again, while the leader scolded them, wondering why they hadn't returned to base as ordered. Akira explained that he had a plan, and asked Yori to listen to his ideas. Then he moved to a distant spot where he wouldn't be noticed, and began aiming his cannon at the ghoul. Meanwhile, the red team leader sarcastically remarked about how ineffective their attacks were, and Kuroiwa confirmed that there was indeed a plan. Akira and Yori managed to lure the ghoul to a specific spot where Akira inserted his cannon into the ghoul's mouth and fired, triggering a violent explosion. Yori ran toward him and embraced him, declaring their success, but the ghoul soon got up again. The red team leader then managed to kill the ghoul, before turning his comments to Akira and Yori, expressing his admiration for their skills and erupting into hysterical laughter. Yori tried to attack him, but he easily deflected her, wondering if they intended to confront him after the mission ended. Mayun then intervened, insisting that the mission wasn't over yet, and proposed a game between the red and green teams, where the winning team would be the one that captured the opposing team's leader. Later, she would step in to weaken the enemy leader's strength to make him easier to kill. In response to this proposal, Kuroiwa demanded a guarantee that all members of the green team would be eliminated if he lost. Shirasagi attempted to object, saying that children and the elderly who had nothing to do with the battle were among them. But Mayun made the decision, declaring that the loser's fate would be total death, and that the fight would begin in 7 days. Shirasagi then returned to base leaning on Akira. Katsuya expressed his astonishment at seeing him, while Shirasagi acknowledged that he owed Yori and Akira. He then ordered a hot bath to be prepared for Yori, and summoned Akira to his office after bandaging his wounds for a discussion. Later, Shirasagi sat with Akira and asked him about his true abilities after witnessing how he crushed the ghoul, realizing that his survival wasn't just a fluke. Akira admitted that he had been hiding his true strength for a special reason, just as he had done before, and vowed to use his power to crush the red team. In the forest, Harika was attacked, and Komagiri intervened to save her, then took her back to base after collecting some firewood. Everyone gathered around him, wondering about his identity, and Akira and Yori were surprised to see him. He explained to the others that he was an old friend from the previous team, and Shirasagi welcomed him into their group. After that, Mayun announced the next mission, and Shirasagi pointed out that it would be an opportunity to curb the power of the red team leader, whose defeat seemed impossible under normal circumstances, and he asked for everyone's support. At that moment, Akira realized that Mayune's plan had been designed from the start to force the two teams to fight, while Kuruiwa was exploiting the situation to eliminate anyone who stood in his way. Lost in thought, Akira was interrupted by Tataria, who thanked him for saving her earlier and tried to get closer, revealing her true ability to discern others' powers. She explained that Komagiri's ability gave him immunity for 2 seconds. Akira led her to his room and asked why she had told him that. She replied that she needed a partner because her ability on its own wasn't useful, and she proposed an alliance. Then he asked her how she knew about the red team's abilities, given that she had been their prisoner. As she left, Yori caught a glimpse of her, which aroused suspicions. The next morning, Akira approached Yori and asked her to spend the day with him, revealing his plan to head to the blue team. He told her to get ready while he talked with Komagiri. Meanwhile, Kuruiwa was contemplating the upcoming mission, dismissing Yori as unimportant, but he saw that the real threat was Akira. At that moment, Rinka returned to the red team and announced her participation in the mission, asking if Rin was present. When Rin tried to speak, Rinka angrily silenced her, demanding to know who allowed her to talk, and then threatened never to show her face again if she wanted to stay alive. Rin apologized and promised to be more cautious before Kuruiwa stepped in and asked Rinka not to stir up any trouble. After that, Kuruiwa summoned the absent members of the red team and informed them that they would be his tools in the next mission, ordering them to use their abilities to eliminate everyone. Meanwhile, one of his men reported that the green team had captured one of their spies, but the spy managed to escape with the help of a mole inside the green team and delivered a message. The message included a confession from the spy that he had hoped to kill Akira during the ghoul attack, though he mysteriously survived. He also noted that Akira's power wasn't his cannon, as everyone believed, and he realized this the moment the cannon was fired at the ghoul. At that point, Kuruiwa turned to Ogami and announced that he would change the battle plan, insisting that Akira was hiding a true ability that had yet to be revealed. In the forest, Yuri wondered why she was heading with Akira to the blue team. He explained that he was there to negotiate and test her ability. Yuri helped him out, but he soon realized he couldn't use her ability or control his body like a beginner trying to drive a Formula 1 car. When she asked why he assumed she could use it, he replied that maybe she was an exception or even a genius, and stressed that they must avoid unnecessary risks in the upcoming battle until they were sure which abilities could be activated beforehand. Since it was hard to remember every ability at once, they decided to limit themselves to 1 or 2 abilities and use simple signals for communication. Akira then hid behind a tree and asked Yuri to imagine a person to transform into. She chose Tataria, and Akira immediately transformed into her. He then explained why he had met Tataria the day before she had discovered his ability and offered a partnership in exchange for keeping his secret. He added that killing her to silence her would have cost him her trust, since she already knew his secret. Therefore, he asked her to talk to Tataria when she returned and pass on her impressions, as he didn't trust her completely. Later, they met the blue team. Among its members was Kirusaki, and their leader Omoto asked how he could help them. Akira introduced himself and explained that the red and green teams were preparing for a battle, and that the rules allowed anyone to join the green team, so he was trying to recruit some blue team members. One of them objected, asking if his leader hadn't mentioned that the blue team was made up of people who refused to fight. Another member mocked Akira for dragging them into his battle. In response, Akira offered 200 points to anyone who joined them and 500 points to whoever could steal the phone of the red team's leader, noting that he knew they were short on points and was willing to pay for mercenary work. Omoto found the offer attractive but pointed out a major problem: it was conditional on the green team winning, which was unlikely. So he made a personal offer. If Akira agreed, he would support them. When Akira asked what the offer was, Omoto replied that he wanted Yuri in exchange for his full commitment. Akira flatly refused, insisting that her value wasn't measured by a set number of abilities, that anyone who wanted her had to fight and do what was asked. Omoto then asked if Akira meant that Yuri's ability was as strong as his. Akira confirmed, and Omoto said he'd pass the offer on to his team, his way of apologizing for the rejected offer, but that he wouldn't participate in the fight since he hated getting involved in messy affairs, especially when the battle's outcome was already clear. After he left, Akira and Yuri were surprised to see Kirusaki, who commented on their failed mission and called them idiots. When they asked how he had managed to be there unnoticed, he replied that he had decided to join the red team to face Akirahe, wasn't there to support him but to be his enemy. Akira responded that he'd see him in the battle. Back at the base, Yuri mentioned that they'd brought some items, but one member sarcastically asked what a guy and a girl could possibly do alone in the forest. Yuri swung at him, but he dodged her punch easily. Later, Shirasagi proposed a new group he wanted to add to the fight, but Akira hesitated due to their inexperience. Momoko explained that they wanted to work as medics after hearing about Tataria's involvement, which convinced Shirasagi to let them join. At dinner, dinner, Haruka Komagiri was asked if she would fight for them. She was assured that Akira and Yuri were friends who would support her, and that she was also a friend, so she thanked him. Then Katsuya Ahsoka was asked why she wanted to fight. She answered that she did it for the child. When it came time for the mission, Mion explained that stealing phones would be a crucial part of the fight. Anyone who lost their phone would be considered dead because the phones were connected to shackles, and moving more than 3 meters away would result in death. Losing the phone meant losing one's ability, and the team that wiped out the other team's phones would win. At the start of the battle, Shirasagi ordered his team to secure at least 3 towers to besiege Ogami's force, the leader of the red team. He then gave an inspirational speech that fired everyone up, stressing that if they earned 50 points, they could control several towers at the same time. Shortly afterward, Katsuya informed him that his team had taken the first tower. When Ahsoka went to secure one of the towers, Ogami suddenly appeared and knocked down one of the team members. He taunted them, asking if they really thought he'd hide like Shirasagi. All Ahsoka could do was draw her sword to buy time. Ogami provoked her by saying her power was weak. She retorted that she had lured him into a trap because she could control the weight of her sword, making it as light as a feather or impossibly heavy. However, he overpowered her, split her sword in half, and then kicked her violently into a wall. She collapsed, bleeding. He then threw a piece of wood at her and demanded that she transform it into a sword and keep fighting to stall him until her teammates arrived. Meanwhile, Shirasagi suspected that Ogami's lone appearance might be a trap. He ordered extra support to Ahsoka's team, while Komagiri kept an eye on Haruka, knowing her ability to change air currents was key for creating a defensive barrier around the base. Soon, members of the red team started blocking the green team's path. Rinka used her military drones to take down many opponents, while Rin blocked Akira's way, sparking a new confrontation. Akira initiated the confrontation with Rin, and they both agreed to start the proposed exchange. However, Akira was cautious moving toward Rin because he still hadn't figured out how her ability worked. Rin told him that she felt the same way about him and insisted that if she'd wanted to kill him, she already would have. She also confronted him about exploiting the green team and her. Tuin suggested that she should be his partner instead of Yuri, but Akira replied that he was there solely for the deal. At that moment, Komagiri appeared after Haruka had warned him of someone approaching, only to find Yuki mocking him and pointing out that none of his other teammates had mentioned him. Komagiri grabbed Yuki by the neck, demanding to know what he had done to his teammates. Soon he noticed the shackles around Yuki's hands shrinking, so he backed off cautiously. Yuki then revealed that his ability was to shrink objects, and he quickly amputated Komagiri's hand in the same way he disposed of his teammates. He declared that their weakness was rushing to save their teammates, a tactic they desperately needed. Elsewhere, Ogami was trying to finish off Ahsoka. Just as he was about to end her life, he was struck by a powerful punch from Yuri that knocked him to the ground. Laughing hysterically, he declared that the trap had worked. Yuri then rushed at him, throwing punches that he blocked until he realized she was relying on hit-and-run tactics. Bored with that approach, he decided to grab her. This was exactly what Akira had expected, so he advised her to seize the opportunity and counterattack. Sure enough, she landed a kick, followed by a barrage of punches to his chest, until a blow to his forehead made him lose his balance and fall, though he eventually got back up. Meanwhile, Shirasagi was speaking with Tataria, mentioning that Kuroiwa would believe the plan was going as designed, but then they exposed the spy among them. Tataria explained that Akira had asked her to find any liar among the slaves regarding his ability, which led Shirasagi to conclude that Akira had doubted it from the beginning and intended to use the trap against their enemies. Tataria then offered the spy help to clean his wounds, but he questioned why she fought in a losing battle instead of fleeing, knowing that the opposing team wouldn't hesitate to kill them all. She replied that she chose to stay because she loved someone in that place. He retorted that she was foolish since that person would also die. Confidently, she said they would win because Akira was a pro at world logic play. At that point, the spy asked her for a cup of water before he would speak further, while Shirasagi wondered if she could convince him to reveal everything. She assured him she would, but when she returned, she was shocked to find the spy bleeding heavily. Shirasagi was then told that enemies were approaching the camp, leading him to suspect the presence of another spy. Earlier, Yuri had told Akira that Ogami was targeting Ahsoka and needed to be saved, but he felt that meeting Rin was a higher priority since their main target was Kuroiwa, the mastermind behind the red team. Yet Yuri insisted on saving Ahsoka, questioning what would become of Taro if Ahsoka was hit. Akira tried to convince her that he needed Ahsoka, but she countered that she should work with Tataria instead. She even asked how he saw her, implying that he only saw her as someone to exploit, and urged him to consider her feelings before she rushed off to save Ahsoka. Meanwhile, Akira devised an alternative plan in case he got separated from Yuri. While executing this plan, he was surprised when Kirisaki's knives started chasing him. He repeated that he had been waiting for this moment. Akira then turned his stick into a sword and began dodging. He leaped and fired his cannon at a tree behind Kirisaki. Before it could crash onto Kirisaki's head, Kirisaki sliced the tree with his sword and then hurled his knives to encircle Akira, declaring that no one could defeat him because of his ability to turn anything into a sword. Suddenly, Kirisaki noticed Rindo above the the tree, holding a sword and trying to attack Akira. He ordered Akira to jump quickly, and Akira skillfully avoided the attack. Rindo then pointed his sword at Akira, introduced himself, and declared his intent to kill him. However, Kurosaki surprised Rindo by throwing his knives at him, claiming that he would be the one to kill Akira. Rindo responded immediately, stating that he would kill them both together. Just a little while before, Rin had been calling her team to alert them to Akira's location, while Akira phoned Kurosaki to set up the meeting point as part of his alternate plan in Yuri's absence, with Kurosaki acting as a temporary partner. Kurosaki explained that Rindo's ability was similar to his own ability to turn a stick into a sword, with the exception that Rindo's blades couldn't be cut by blades with the same ability. But Rindo surprised both of them by cutting down the trees behind them with a single touch. Akira then rushed to fire his cannon at Rindo and quickly decided to retreat temporarily with Kurosaki. Later, Akira confirmed that Rindo possessed the same ability as Kurosaki, but noticed a subtle difference. One of Kurosaki's knives had pierced his cannon, whereas Rindo's attack hadn't managed the same, leading him to suspect that Rindo was cutting something else. Based on that, Kurosaki proposed a 4-step plan to defeat Rindo if he cooperated with Akira. However, as soon as the attack began, Kurosaki fell onto Rindo, who blocked him, and a sword duel ensued. The duel ended with Rindo being thrown far away as he wondered where Akira was. At that moment, Akira fired his cannon, but Rindo blocked the shot with a wild move that exposed the 4-step ambush. Akira then clarified that it was actually a 5-step plan, which allowed him to seize the opportunity and quickly direct his daggers at Rindo's body, effectively judging him. Akira then praised him and suggested forming a team in the future. Elsewhere, a nun tossed her doll toward Rinka. The doll hit the ground, but Rinka quickly rose and shredded it into pieces. Then Rin appeared and asked Rinka about her ability to control the fighters. Rinka had never liked Rin from the start and declared that it was her time to die. Rin tried reminding her that they were on the same team, but Rinka didn't care. She said she would claim that the green team killed her. In response, Rin transformed her hand into a blade, leaving Rinka stunned. Rinka lunged toward her with a dagger, but Rin dodged the attack and used her blood to form knives, which she launched at Rinka. One of the knives hit Rinka in the eye. Despite this, Rinka continued her assault, but made a mistake. Her dagger lodged in a tree, allowing Rin to restrain her and sprint off. Rin eventually found the true user of the immunity ability and killed him inside a box, realizing that such a power in a death game was something Mion would never allow. When one of them asked what she was doing, she replied that she was a devotee who gave life to the games. Rin then confessed that she had made a deal with the green team. If they won, she would claim to be their spy, and they would testify before Mion, ensuring her survival. Kurosaki began inspecting the Rindo weapon and discovered that the scabbard contained a wooden layer. He guessed that the inner layer had been transformed into a sword capable of cutting through anything. Meanwhile, Yuki wrapped Komagiri in sharp ropes that could tear apart anything, after tying his hand with a rope to keep him from moving. Komagiri fell to the ground and asked Yuki how many people he'd killed to master his ability, and how he managed to use the power given to him by others. Yuki replied that he was nothing but a drifter in a bar, poor and broke, but now he was a winner and he enjoyed it. Komagiri called him disgusting, so Yuki pulled his rope around his neck and demanded that he beg for his life. Komagiri responded that he would make Yuki pay. Before Yuki could kill him, Harika jumped on him and knocked him down, prompting Komagiri to tell her she was reckless. Yuki then threw his dagger at her, but Komagiri leapt in front to take the blow with his chest. In that moment, he remembered his older brother in the hospital, who had asked him to get better quickly so they could be a team again, but his brother had left him, donating his organs. At that moment, Komagiri saw a vision of his brother, wondering if he had refrained from using his ability out of fear of disappointing him, and urging him to use it to protect those he loved. Regaining his strength, Komagiri grabbed Yuki by the neck and slammed him to the ground, breaking his bones. Harika apologized for being the cause of his injuries, but he reassured her that he would be fine and was determined to use his power to defeat their enemies. Meanwhile, Katsuya was facing his elderly opponent, who told him he couldn't beat him and demanded that he surrender. It was then that Katsuya realized he wouldn't be able to save Asuka. He remembered how worthless his life had been before joining the team, and how they had welcomed him and treated him kindly. He decided to delay the old man to gain time and save his comrades. But suddenly a voice Akira's came, telling him not to sacrifice himself and to go rescue Asuka instead, because Yuri was there but would be too busy fighting, and that he would take on the old man. Katsuya dashed toward Asuka while Akira threw a stone at the old man. The old man reacted, and the stone vanished in the palm of his hand, making everyone wonder if the old man possessed an ability for instantaneous chemical reactions. The old man laughed, noting that Kuroiwa and Rindo had been cautious of him, but he came to realize that his ability wasn't actually the cannon, and since he used a stone instead of the cannon, he couldn't use it it now? His curiosity drove him to explore his abilities further, but he was caught off guard when he picked up the Rindo sword hidden behind a tree, making him wonder if he had copied Rindo's ability. Akira confirmed this by brandishing the sword, which injured the old man, since the Rindo blade was the one thing the old man couldn't block. Just moments earlier, Kurosaki had asked Akira if he would take the Rindo sword, pointing out that it was just an ordinary wooden sword requiring an accompanying ability. But Akira understood that his power depended on what the opponent assumed, and since the old man believed his ability lay in stealth attacks, the sword succeeded in striking him. At the same time, Tataria was investigating the murder of the spy, noting that the victim had been killed by a blade. She soon guessed that the killer was Momoko, and went to warn Shirasagi about her. However, she was surprised to find that he had uncovered her betrayal, especially after he confronted her with his cannon and tried to kill her. He asked why she had suddenly attacked, and she replied that she had been on his side from the beginning, but once she learned that the leaders of the red team, Ogami and Kuroiwa, were her sons, things changed. She ordered him to throw away his phone to seal his ability, threatening to hurt Taro if he didn't comply. Everyone was astonished, and when they asked if she had lost her mind, she replied that if the red team won, she would take Taro and raise him herself. Reluctantly, Shirasagi handed over his phone to protect the child, and Kuroiwa was informed that their plan had succeeded. Before she could leave, Tataria stopped her, insisting that she would not allow her to take the child. Meanwhile, Mion informed Kuroiwa that they still hadn't won. He replied that he had received word of Shirasagi's death, but she countered that despite that, they hadn't defeated the Green Team's king yet, as there was a possibility of choosing a new king. Momoko then began chasing Tataria with her cannon, insisting that she wouldn't be able to reclaim Taro as long as he continued hiding. Tataria, frightened, hid behind a tree, remembering Akira's earlier question as to whether she had ever tried copying an enemy's ability. She denied it then, explaining that diluting the ability did no good. Akira encouraged her to have faith and experiment, while Momoko continued firing her cannon, demanding that Tataria tell her the king's name so she would stop pursuing her. Tataria decided to confront her, demanding the return of Taro. Tataria quickly managed to mimic Momoko's power, transforming her hand into a similar cannon. Momoko realized that Tataria's power now posed a threat to her sons, and decided to eliminate her. Tataria asked Momoko to hide Taro in a safe place so that he wouldn't get hurt during their fight. Then, the two began aiming their cannons at each other, causing a thick cloud of smoke to billow. Suddenly, Momoko vanished and reappeared behind Tataria, landing a surprise punch to her face before brutally beating her, declaring she needed the determination to fire at someone. Soon, Tataria collapsed to the ground, exhausted. Momoko ordered her to reveal the identity of the king, saying she only wanted to save Taro and start over with him. But Tataria had recognized Momoko's true nature and fired a projectile at the wall behind her, apologizing that she wouldn't let Momoko take Taro even if it meant killing her. Assuming that Taro had been buried under the rubble, Momoko ran toward him, while Tataria seized the opportunity to get up quickly and carry Taro, insisting that she had tricked Momoko into abandoning her defense. Immediately, she was ordered to throw her phone to seal her ability. She complied, though she then tried to kill Momoko with a stone. Tataria responded by launching a projectile at the wall so that it would fall on Momoko and hit her. On the other side, Kuroiwa asked Akira if he was the new king. Akira replied that he should worry about his own king, while Kurosaki and Komagiri surrounded Ogami to support Yuri in her battle against him. Kuroiwa told Akira that he hadn't expected him to set himself up as king instead of Shirasagi, pointing out that it showed he possessed a protective ability which, at the same time, would lead to his downfall. For that reason, he wasn't interested in uncovering its nature. In the midst of the violent confrontation, Akira fired his cannon at Kuroiwa, but Zokumyoin, who had joined his side, blocked the attack. At that point, Kuroiwa confidently declared that his abilities were stronger, and Zokumyoin released a massive blast. However, one of Kuroiwa's followers touched her, causing her to disintegrate into scattered pieces. Then, Akira remembered Tataria's words when she told him that Kuroiwa and Ogami were combining their powers to control the slaves. When they captured them, Ogami nearly killed them if it weren't for Kuroiwa's intervention, which made it seem as if he had saved them. In reality, his ability forced anyone he rescued to repay the favor by becoming his slave, sacrificing their lives for him. It was at that moment that Akira realized Kuroiwa was the true king. With a confident smile, Kuroiwa told him that he knew him well, and that he must have come up with some plan. Akira replied that their weakness lay in their ignorance of his true nature. They hadn't realized the reason he could use multiple skills, just as they had been surprised earlier by Shirasagi's true ability to reflect enemy attacks. They had underestimated him, and Kuroiwa noted that an arrogant person like him naturally sees the world as his own kingdom, not to mention that they never suspected there was a spy among them. Akira shot back that it was his arrogance that would be his downfall. Kuroiwa then announced that his plan had been revealed. He was simply stalling until the five-fold girl and her companions could defeat Ogami, but his plan would fail. In reality, he wasn't just talking to Akira, he was fulfilling the conditions of his ability to turn him into his slave. Now, he would force him to pay his debt by temporarily taking away the use of his right leg. Soon, Akira was bound in chains, and Kuroiwa declared the end of his story as his slaves began surrounding Akira. Kuroiwa moved closer and explained how he had discovered Akira's secret weapon, pointing out that one of his former spies had revealed everything about Akira during his battle with the ghoul. He ordered him to use his cannon, not caring about his abilities, because it was enough for him to be sure that Akira had a cannon and the power of instantaneous movement. In a flash, he plunged his knife into Akira's stomach, making it clear that everything had been under his control, and that Akira had been nothing more than a puppet in his grasp from the beginning. Akira fell to the ground, drowning in his own blood. Kuroiwa wondered if Akira really believed he'd been toyed with, but was surprised when Akira confidently replied that all his words were just a way to help him smoothly recall some memories, so he could use his abilities against him. The moment Kuroiwa realized what was happening, he tried summoning his minions to save the situation, but Akira told him it was too late. Akira placed his hand on his chest and used his Shirasagi ability, which allowed him to reflect the attack back on Kuroiwa. Kuroiwa was blasted away, bleeding, while all his minions were freed. Akira then revealed the spot of his injury. He had been wearing a book that deflected the stayband, sarcastically said he'd been ready for anything. Kuroiwa was shocked by his plan. Akira explained that he knew Shirasagi had a huge library and used it against him. Kuroiwa admitted he'd miscalculated, but insisted that it wouldn't change their fate since Ogami was still stronger than all of them. In a decisive moment, Kurosaki climbed on top of Kumagiri's body and charged with his sword, plunging it into Ogami's chest, asserting that Ogami couldn't defeat them all. They were stunned when Ogami rose with force, delivering a brutal punch that sent Kurosaki reeling and even shattered the wall behind him. Ogami then stood, declaring that whenever he got angry, he lost control. He had always been told he wasn't human, yet he never found an answer to his true nature, and everyone who asked met with death. Meanwhile, Akira hurried to join his other comrades, while Kuroiwa pulled out a spare phone and contacted Ogami, determined to build their kingdom there. On the other side, at Shinai Academy, Kuroiwa remembered Momoko when he introduced her to his comrades as a new friend, and recalled how she had met Ogami. He had asked her about the book she was reading, and she replied it was about insects building a kingdom for everyone, a mere fairy tale. In reality, things were much harsher. They were tortured by the orphanage director, who always told them they were nothing but trash and that they should be grateful he fed them. As the battle intensified, Ogami transformed into an invulnerable being that amazed Kumagiri and Yuri. Kumagiri fell to the ground after a crushing blow, while Yuri rose despite her broken left arm, determined to finish the fight. At that moment, Ogami recalled a harsh memory from his past with Kuroiwa, when the orphanage director had seized the book Kingdom for All and mocked them, saying they were alive only because of him and owed him a debt of gratitude. Ogami hurled the book to the ground, which both he and Kuroiwa picked up, only to be whipped by the director, who screamed that they didn't even deserve the life of an animal. In that moment, the desire to create their own kingdom was born within them. Fugue, reckless anger began to seep into Ogami, fueling him to take down the director. Yuri admitted that maybe she wasn't really human, but she didn't care. She firmly told him she would stop him, even if he was a monster. In a fateful moment, she faced him with a powerful punch, determined to end the conflict at any cost. Ogami blocked Yuri's punch with his fist, surprised by its strength. Despite her broken arm, she was determined to use her powers, if willing to sacrifice her left arm to shatter his. They exchanged blows quickly, but all Ogami felt was the pain of the past, thinking that fighting him was hopeless. He wondered why her hits were deflected without her falling, even with her arm completely broken. Suddenly, she landed a strong punch, insisting she wouldn't lose to him, and he felt a sharp pain. Declaring that she would end him, she leaped forward to punch him in the chest but was shocked when her ability vanished while Ogami remained unaffected. He shoved her to the ground as Mion announced that the red team had used 50 points to seal Yuri's ability. At that moment, Kuroiwa remembered just minutes earlier when he realized his own impending death. He released some of his minions to make it seem as if he had lost his power in front of Akira, warning him that Yuri and her comrades wouldn't be able to defeat Ogami. This forced Akira to rush in to save his comrades, distancing himself from Kuroiwa's real phone, and allowing Kuroiwa to secure his victory over Akira in the final mind game. Before Ogami could kill Yuri, he received a call from Akira, who announced he was the true king of the green team and offered him a deal. If he spared Yuri and the rest, they would face off one-on-one, but if he killed them, he would also kill Kuroiwa and vanish forever. He explained that if Ogami chased his minions, he'd gain 15 points, meaning he could find them anytime he wanted. Ogami refused the offer, insisting that Kuroiwa was dead in any case, and that he wouldn't stop fighting, viewing the sealing of his ability as merely a message to build his kingdom. However, he paused to think, and before facing Akira, resolved to kill him, just as he had killed Kuroiwa. Akira then demanded proof that Yuri was still alive. Ogami struck her face until she came to, and she heard Akira's voice reassuring her that he was coming to save her, and asking her to let him handle it. Meanwhile, his comrades tried to stop him, but Shirasagi, still alive, ordered them to let Ogami leave, believing he would succeed. In those moments, Katsuya returned carrying Asuka and realized that Yuri had been defeated and that Akira was on his way to confront Ogami. As for Rin, she saw that everyone had reached the endgame. It no longer mattered who won as long as they had reached the climax. Mion watched the scene from the control room with a smile, saying, "That was fun." Then the clash between Akira and Ogami began. Ogami told Akira that Kurua had been worried about him from the start, and then charged violently at Akira, determined to avenge Kurua. At that moment, Akira shouted for Yuri, demanding her help to use his final ability. As soon as Ogami neared him to strike, Yuri quickly evaded and countered with a powerful punch that broke through his defenses. Blood flowed from Ogami's mouth as he fell to the ground, his mind flooding with the harsh memories of his life and the moments spent with Kurua. When he tried to rise again, he collapsed completely, admitting Yuri's strength. The victory of the green team was declared amid applause from the game's guards and cheers from its members. While Akira approached Yuri apologetically, she reassured him that he'd arrived just in time. Mion congratulated him and told him he needed to head to a special area reserved for the team's king to discuss his team's reward and the next program. She then ordered that Yuri, Kumagari, and Kirasaki be taken for treatment, assuring Akira that he would see them again once his work was done. Later, Akira met with Omoto, who congratulated him on the win and said he'd seen everything, remarking that Yuri possessed an amazing ability, though he thought Akira's ability was equally impressive. This confused Akira, making him wonder if Omoto had discovered his own hidden skill, sparking curiosity about his true strength. Then Omoto quickly turned his hand into a gun and fired a swift shot at Akira, hitting him and sending him crashing to the ground. Omoto looked at him confidently, stating that the outcome had been clear from the start, and told him that now he owed him 200 points and his life. When Akira asked about his goal, Omoto revealed that he aimed to kill Mion with his own hands and, if she didn't help him, he would eliminate her. After that, he left, promising Akira that he would see him in the fourth program. After these events, Akira woke up in his bed wondering about the dream that still haunted him. He then pondered whether or not he should go to school, before putting on his coat and heading out, finally deciding to forget about school and choose a game that would take him out of his reality.